Okay, peeps, welcome back. So today we're going to be going over AMC specifically, as well as the Bitcoin miner stocks, which we usually go over. So with that being said, let's get it. All right, so if you guys were following us on X, you would know we talked about this bullish divergence here, RSI moving up, price moving down. That's what's known as a bullish divergence. And we do have a falling wedge pattern here, which again, the target is the top of the wedge, so 1412. We're, basically about the top of the wedge here. Another way to measure this would be to basically take the start of the wedge, and now keep in mind this is not going to be exact, but pretty much the start of the wedge to the breakout point. You can see it's not perfectly exactly with the top of the wedge, but it's pretty close. It lines us up with this trend line over here. But again, generally speaking, the target for a falling wedge is going to be the top of the wedge. So again, that's $14. That's pretty much about a 3x from the current price. Something else I want to point out to you guys is that the price is starting to break above this wedge. Now, if we get a break above the wedge and we also get a break and a close above this yellow EMA, that is extremely bullish, okay? And we will be heading back up to basically this trend line, this resistance, and the red EMA. If we get above all those, I mean, man, y'all, the sky's the limit. And we did point out these gaps here. Well, it's not really so obvious on the weekly time frame. You can't really see it on the weekly, both of them, but you can see this weekly gap up here, which never got filled. Again, that is $36 to $43. And what did we say on this channel about gaps? Generally speaking, gaps love to get filled. I think it's like some 95 or 98% of all gaps ever get filled at some point. So again, we have a gap here, 1630 to about 1920, and then 36 to about 43 in terms of these gaps up here. And then, of course, if we get above those gaps, I mean, we get above these two trend lines here. I mean, sky's the limit as far as I'm concerned. We do also have earnings coming up for GME. I'll go over that real quick in a minute. You can see the price is now currently above the EMAs. The EMAs are curling up and they're getting ready to have a golden cross. That's always a good sign. So on August 24th, we're going to have earnings for AMC. But I do think if GME comes out with bullish earnings or even bullish forward guidance, that alone would be enough to pump the price of AMC and even this FFIE here. But AMC for sure. And again, those earnings are coming just right around the corner on June 5th. Something else I wanted to point out to you guys in the aftermarket here on Robinhood, aftermarket hours, you can see that AMC has gone up pretty substantially. It went up into the close, and then even after the close, it's holding nicely. We have been increasing our position. You can see we have 613 shares, average cost of $7.30. But something else that I want to point out to you guys here is on the options market. So this is pretty telling if you ask me. Okay, so you can see that they have options prices going way up here, okay? As high as $22. You can even see there is like a payout here for the $22. I want to point this out to you. So look, there's 25,000 open interest at $22 here. Okay, this is just 2 days out. Go down to the 2050, you can see not that much. 2,000 contracts. So let's go out a little bit further in time. I'm going to go to like, let's say closer to the end of June, okay? So what do we see up here? We see some premium, right? The thing I want to point out to you guys here is the open interest. 12,000, almost 13,000 contracts on June 21st for a strike price of $22. That is a lot of open interest, but here's the real kicker. Look at this. 84,600 contracts with a strike price of $20 by June 21st. And again, what do we say? Earnings for GME is going to be on June 5th. So if GME is bullish in any way, shape, or form, price goes up on GME. You already know AMC is going to oscillate. We might end up hitting $20 by next month. That's absolutely a possibility, okay? I'll go just a little bit further out just to reiterate this so you can see, once again, not so much open interest here, but, you know, you got 1,600 at $22. Kind of just scroll through these a little bit because we were looking through them earlier. So not so much interest here, but what is curious about this is this June 21st. Again, I do want to point out that this is a lot of options contract volume. Okay. This number right here is not a small amount. Okay. That's a lot of options contracts. So 85,000 contracts. Let's go over to something like NVIDIA. As you guys can see, NVIDIA earnings was clearly very bullish. It's over $1,000 now. And NVIDIA did go up with it. Just so y'all know, the Yield Max ETF did go up substantially. So yay us that hold NVIDIA. Or NVIDIA, I should say. But if I'm going over to, well, and I mean, generally speaking, now that NVIDIA's had earnings, the option interest is probably going to be quite a bit higher, I can imagine. But you can see, like, and granted, NVIDIA is a much more expensive stock, but you can see it's only like 54 contracts. If I go up even a little bit higher, you can see only like 746. If I do, let's say, an at the money, only 1,700 contracts, okay? If I go over to something else that's really popular, let's say like SoFi. SoFi is a really popular one. And we do have some SoFi, just so y'all know. And we also have some covered calls at play currently. But if I were to go out to, let's say, the same date, June 21st, if I were just to do an at the money, you can see it's only 2,400 contracts. Again, let's say I was going to do a weekly option, do 9 days to the end of next week. Again, at the money, still only 18,000 contracts, okay? 18,000 is a lot, but it's not 85,000. So it's looking likely that AMC is going to be 20 plus or maybe even higher by closer to the end of the next month. So let's go ahead and get into the charts here. All right, so I got to zoom out a little bit on this one because I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking at here. It does look like this is a massive support and resistance level that the price is currently sitting at. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit more obvious. All right, so Mara. Histogram starting to curl up. EMA starting to curl up on the MACD. That's very bullish. We got a golden cross on the RSI. There's a chance this thing could start pumping into this resistance here. That could happen. So as of right now, the current support still sits between $18.20 to $20. We're doing some cash secured puts on Mara right now because, again, if we do not want to get assigned the shares, we want to be doing a put somewhere in this zone or even below the zone, okay? If we're just looking to collect the premium, not be assigned the shares, we just want the premium, this is the perfect zone to do it. So the resistance is going to be 29 all the way up to $33, roughly thereabouts. If you have shares at current price to the swing high up here, it's about a 56% move from the bottom of this range to the swing high. Or I should say the range high is about 80%, and then the swing high would be about 87% move. So Mara is in my opinion, it's looking perfect, very perfect, or pretty close to perfect to potentially have a launch pad to just skyrocket from this point. This is generally a pretty, I would say, the beginning stages of a massive move up on Mara. I would not be surprised if in the next couple of weeks, Mara was actually, next couple of weeks, maybe next 3-4 weeks, it was up in this zone up here. That would not shock me even a little bit. So CLSK, this one we have quite a bit of. We have 300 shares of this, as you guys know. So again, it's kind of bobbing around in between this rising broadening wedge and or microphone pattern, depending on how you want to look at it. If this was a microphone pattern, this would be bullish, meaning it would break out of the microphone and up. But again, the current price is going to be, or support, I should say, is going to be roughly around 1370. So the bottom of this trend line here, and the high, the range high up here is going to be 2130 to about 23.5 bucks. The local swing high is about 2470. So from the current price down to the trend line, you'd be looking at about a 25% drop. I don't think at this point it's going to go down there, but that's just my opinion. And then from the current price to the swing high, about 35%. And from the trend line to the swing high, we'd be looking at about 75% move. So I'm going to go down to the daily actually on this one because I want to see a little bit more. So you guys can actually kind of see here. So this thing is really choppy. Okay, it goes from golden cross to a death cross to a golden cross. But the thing I want to point out here is that we did have another golden cross. So as choppy and ugly as this looks, we did have a golden cross. That's the kind of the point here. So last time this happened, on the MACD and the EMAs. You can see it's almost perfect, the alignment here. We pretty much went all the way up to $21. So again, we will most likely go back up to this resistance somewhere. I don't know exactly where, but somewhere up in there. And again, we have another bullish confluence of the golden cross and the EMAs here lining up perfectly with the MACD golden cross, and we have a golden cross back here on the RSI. So all of that looks very good, minus this kind of shooting star candle. Even though it's green, that doesn't look so good. But when you look at it on the weekly time frame, it's actually quite bullish. So this is a pretty big green bar. It's always a good sign. I would say likely this thing is probably just going to chop sideways and then move up. Because again, generally speaking, usually I've noticed in trading, usually when we get kind of these, like it has this huge move up, right? Just absolute beast move. And then it just goes sideways. Usually what follows after that is another beast move to the upside. Okay, that's always what happens. So it goes up, sideways, kind of bobs around a little bit into the EMAs, and at some point it builds up enough pressure to where it just goes like a geyser, just straight up past, ideally past the next resistance into kind of the mid-20s, low 30s is kind of what we're looking at. So Riot, this thing is still getting held below the EMAs. That's not so great, but you can see the RSI is starting to have a golden cross here. Histogram starting to kind of weaken on the bear trend for the MACD, so that's always a good sign. Still sitting pretty close to pretty much perfectly at support. I think Riot has a lot of upside in my opinion. I think it's kind of being suppressed, and there is a massive move coming. I don't know when, but it's coming. I'm pretty confident of that. So 770 to 10.25 on support, 1860 to 21 on resistance there. So if you just hold from the current price to the top of the range up there, it's 95% move. Again, that's massive. That's almost double your money. From the top of the range or top of support to the top of the resistance, about 108%. And assuming it, well, I think the lowest it probably would go is like about 870. I don't think it's going to go lower than that. But from there to the top of the range, about 142% move. And again, we'll kind of just dig in here a little bit, take a look at the daily time frame. So it does look like it's not really obvious here, but I'm going to point something out to y'all. So we have this golden cross on the RSI. Keep in mind we had a golden cross here. It kind of went sideways, had a little fake out death cross, and then we have another golden cross. That's a very bullish sign, okay? That's very bullish. Because if this thing was going to sell off, it would have had this MACD death cross and just plummeted straight down, but it did not do that. So that's actually not what I want to point out here. So what I do want to point out, first of all, is the break of this trend line. Okay, yeah, that's not exactly perfect. There we go. Breakout candle. And then we need to see a higher confirmation candle close above that. But if we get above these EMAs, which you can see it's kind of being held down here, that's also very bullish. But the more important thing I want to point out here is that we have a low, a high, a higher low, and whether this is going to end up pushing up to a new higher high or not, well, that remains to be seen. But as of right now, this right here could potentially be a trend change, meaning that we're going to go up from this point. There is also something else I want to point out here. So there is a potential, it's not really so obvious to see here, but there is a potential kind of cup and handle pattern. It's not really so obvious to draw out here, but we kind of have our left shoulder, head, right shoulder, or I should say inverse cup and handle pattern. The inverse cup, the upside down cup and, or not cup and handle, upside down head and shoulders or inverse head and shoulders pattern is actually a bullish pattern. Okay. If you see a regular head and shoulders, that's bearish, but in this case, it's bullish. So we do have the breakout. Well, actually we have the break of the trend line, but not yet the inverse head and shoulders. But if we get a break of it, it's going to be about $16.50 for our target on that move. Okay. All right. So HUT 8 is starting to move out of this massive long time falling wedge here, very bullish. Again, we have a golden cross. Histogram is turning green on the MACD, golden cross on the RSI. That's all very good. Looks very bullish. We also do have a potential triple golden cross here on the EMAs, and I say potential because again, HUT 8 kind of like Riot and CleanSpark, just kind of chopping around, not doing much. But the important thing to note here is that we got out of this wedge on the daily time frame, and we have the confirmation candle here and just waiting for, or I should say breakout candle, and then waiting for a confirmation candle above and beyond that. So that's very bullish. And again, it's not perfect. I could draw it. This is actually on the daily time frame. So if I was going to draw it on the daily time frame, it would look something more like this. So actually more like a channel. But I drew this on the weekly time frame over the daily time frame because it's really, really obvious here. I mean, just look at it. So again, if I were to just kind of connect the candle bodies here to this wick, you can see we're already starting to break out of it. We just need to get above the EMAs. And again, the target is the top of the wedge, so it's all the way up here. And we do have a golden cross on the MACD, so that's good. Although it's really ugly. I've never seen one that ugly. It's really hideous to look at. It's just really disgusting looking indicator right there. So the top of this support range and the top trend line here is going to be the support, so that's going to be roughly around $9. The resistance is going to be about $17.50-ish to about $23 is what we're looking at. So from the current price to the swing high up here, 134% move. And then just slightly down below that at the trend line to the swing high, about 163% move. And I want y'all to keep in mind, this thing was once valued at $80, okay? So in my mind, this thing is heavily undervalued right now. That's why we have over 300 shares of it. Okay, so CIFR, pretty sure if I go down to the daily, it's not going to show me much on here because, again, this is very choppy. The thing I do want to point out here is CIFR is choppy, but also going up. That's a somewhat bullish sign. So again, I wouldn't be touching this one, but so you guys can maybe look at this as like a later potential entry for a bullish move at a future point in time if you want to. So 212 to 270 on support, 490 to about 550 on resistance, and then the swing high up here is 5 3/4. So from current price to the swing high is about 38% move. From the current price back down to the support zone, which again, I'm not sure it's going to move back down there anytime soon because we have been kind of riding the EMAs here. But again, I still wouldn't buy it even if it does look bullish. So 49% to the downside. And then kind of from those candle body bottoms down there all the way to the swing high, about 150% move. So BTBT, this one was actually had some life today. I was quite shocked. It was last few days has been moving up. So EMAs are curling up on the weekly. Histogram is starting to slow on the red side, potentially turning green here soon. And a potential golden cross on the MACD that's very bullish. We have a golden cross on the RSI that's also very bullish. And it looks like this green candle body might close above these 3 EMAs here by the end of the week. If it does do that and then we get a follow-up green candle above that and not something like this here, then I would say that's very good. We're probably going to head back into resistance. So as of right now, support is still between $165 to $2 and resistance up there between $420 to about $480. Swing highs at $530 per share. And I want y'all to keep in mind the previous all-time high for this particular miner was $33, okay? So that's more than a 10x the current price. But anyways, this move is going to be 107%. And then kind of towards the top of this range, which again is a lot of candle bodies kind of sit in that area. 166% move on BTBT. All right, so BITF, this thing is kind of riding this support line down here. Didn't quite come back all the way down and test it, but again, the current support is going to be roughly about $1.40. Resistance $2 to $2.30. Above that, you're looking at roughly about $3 to $3.60, and then respectively about $3.90. So from the current price, let's just say all the way up to this wick high up here, 90% move. From the trend line to the first range high, 65%, second range high, 150%, and then 172% on the swing high up there. So last thing I want to go over before we close this video out is our holdings. So we have like a ridiculous amount of calls and puts going on here. We're really trying to ramp up this options portfolio. But I want to point out to you guys our underlying holdings. So we have basically 343 shares of HUD 8, 1,400 shares of BTBT, 200 shares of Riot, 300 shares of CLSK, and also if we get put the shares on Mara here, which I'm thinking we're probably not going to because it expires in a couple of days, but if we get put the shares, well, okay, I take that back. Maybe we will get put the shares. But if we get put the shares, we will also have 100 shares of Mara. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this content. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see y'all later. Peace.